Hey everyone, this is George Soto and you're watching Startups Unedited.
With Jack K. So
Yeah.
nice. Hey everyone, this is George Soto and you're watching Startups Unedited with my co-host Jack Kazakowski. Today we're with Greg Head, who is the former CMO at Infusionsoft. You're a real thought leader in the Scottsdale area startup community. Greg, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's a little warm here in the middle of Arizona's summer, but we can take it. I know it scares away most people. We can take it.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's only 3 months. We get 9 months of beautiful weather while everybody else is miserable.
Yeah,
So
it's a great place.
Well, everyone loves Arizona. I mean, people are super excited about it all the time, So I have a couple buddies of mine who have a condo out there.
Awesome.
Well, Greg, just real quick, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself to the audience? Just tell folks a little bit about yourself and how'd you actually get into, just CRM technology, marketing technology. There's just so many things.
Well, I guess the first thing to admit is I've been around this game for a long time. So I was just talking about being from Chicago and Iowa, and came back to Chicago in 1987 looking for my first job, and a buddy of mine said, why don't you work with me at this software retail store, back when software was in a box. And that's where I got my start at the beginning of the packaged software business, and was fortunate to be there early when all the just misfits there, and joined a little company that made the first popular contact manager called Act, back when no salespeople were using computers, and then eventually they were, and I helped grow that up. And in the mid 90s, when that was acquired by Symantec, I lived out in California, and all this software stuff was starting to get a little cooler, and I helped start a company here in Arizona in '96 called Sales Logics. So that was sales automation, which is now known as CRM.
Absolutely.
Helped grow that up, and actually the founder of Act and myself and a few other grew that business up, went public, and we bought Act back from Symantec and grew that business. So, in the whole, we call it CRM, customer relationship management, but sales and marketing software for small and mid-sized businesses has been most of my career. And just over 5 years ago, I joined a little company here in Arizona called Infusionsoft, which is sales and marketing software for small business and automation, and helped grow that from 15 million to 100 million. And now I'm back helping the little guys grow up. So I'm a growth guy. There's inventors in this business, and there's the big company guys, and there's the ones who like to do the journey from nothing to something. And I like that. It's an extreme sport, but that's, I think, where all the fun is.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Scottsdale area startup ecosystem. It's almost like I talk to a startup founder who's from the area like every couple of weeks now. There's another startup there that's doing pretty good. Allbound.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, those guys. So I remember meeting one of the founders. I think they were part of an accelerator here called Accelerprise that I help out with. Let's just tell us all the good stuff.
Well, there's a lot going on. And so it's the Phoenix area in general. And Scottsdale is right there in Phoenix. And so is Chandler and Tempe, Arizona, where ASU is. And so all over the valley here, our valley of Phoenix, there's a startup scene and a lot of software and web technologies and e-commerce and the rest. But I helped start a company here 20 years ago when there was almost no software companies here, and we were quite crazy pioneers, and it's a great place to start a company. We came from Silicon Valley. We became a big fish in a small pond here, and I've actually helped 2 companies grow up to $100 million in revenue here in Arizona, in Phoenix area.
Awesome. And that's hard anywhere. Kudos to you on that.
Yes. And so there's a lot of stories in there, and it's not always a straight line, and it's just, that's the fun of it, from nobody's doing it and nobody knows you to someday everybody's doing it and you're the one, and as a business. So that's pretty exciting. But we're kind of in that early stage in the Phoenix area, Scottsdale, Chandler, Tempe, that there's just an explosion of little companies starting, which doesn't mean that it's established here and you can look around and there's 20 buildings and it's like downtown San Francisco and everybody's got their own building with signs on it. it's just that early phase that's coming through. And there are hundreds of up and running startups that are starting here. Phoenix Startup Week, which is a few years old, a week-long, 150 speakers, experts, people from all over come in. But 5,000 people attended last year, and it's doubling every year. So, and right now I'm involved in helping, in particular in the software business here, the little guys grow up. And the kind of 1 to 10 million growth phase, like I'm up and running, but I'm not quite growing and gone yet. That's the most critical period and the most adventurous and all that, and that's where I'm helping out here. But there's, several dozen of those kind of companies that are in revenue growing, working on funding and the rest. So ASU is contributing in a big way, and there's 30, 40 incubators and workspaces here that are
that's pretty significant.
Yeah, it's just expanding. Absolutely. And I try to keep track of the software players here, the SaaS players in Arizona. And every week I add 2 or 3 more to my list. So I'm actually going to publish the list on my website at some point this summer so everybody can see what's going on. So, yeah, it's and to normal people who aren't familiar with the startup game or the software tech game or the rest, which is like outside of Silicon Valley, that's not the norm. And they say, well, I don't see it anywhere, and just because they're not big and it's not normal yet. But we can absolutely see it coming fast, and big companies grow up. Infusionsoft is big. WebPT is getting bigger. Tuft and Needle and e-commerce in mattress and the new modern mattress distribution game. They're a $100 million company after 2 years, and there's a lot of things just flying here. There's a ton of talent. I always laugh because you can get 3,000 feet of office space here for what you're paying for your
for my room here.
600 square foot apartment. No, just joking. It's funny though, but I think it's because Arizona is so spread out. So people are just they don't get it, right? It's you have startups in Glendale, you have startups in Central Phoenix, Scottsdale, South Scottsdale. So it's not your normal tech ecosystem.
Yeah, and Phoenix has been a spread out place. That's part of its its blessing and its curse. So. But the size of it is really starting to happen. And in about 5 years, everybody's going to say, of course, it's obvious and all that. And it's just obvious there's a lot coming through. One of the things that wasn't obvious 5 years ago, and it's starting to be obvious to people who play the game here, is that downtown Phoenix is starting to happen as a center of activity. And there's stuff all over in Scottsdale where I helped start 2 companies, and Chandler and the distributed network. But it's a very cool place in downtown Phoenix with all the old buildings and, the techies and the people who drink the best coffee and have all the interesting food and craft beer. The cool glasses are all starting to move there. And there's a lot going on in Scottsdale and the rest. So,
do you think they'll start to aggregate? That's what I've been wondering. When will they, aggregate an area and kind of designate it the tech?
Well, if you look at Silicon Valley, there's a few spots, Soma in San Francisco and other places, and then you go to the Mid-Peninsula, and then you go to San Jose, and you spread out. There's pockets everywhere in those kind of ecosystems. One of the things that's cool about Phoenix is that before it was everybody kind of kept to themselves. We played national games, and there wasn't much going on locally for us, so we kind of stayed out of everything. Now Arizona is very connected, and it's a very generous and connected community. So there's a lot of people contributing and making it happen and connecting the dots. I kind of help with that. A lot of people do. So I don't think it's going to be one place that it's going to happen, but there's going to be a few critical masses. And there's now a few events where everybody gets together and you could see hundreds of people, So
that's great. What's your current opinion on the state of sales tech, marketing tech, kind of this overlap that seems to happen every 2 months? Sales tech starts building marketing features and vice versa. Where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I'm maybe one of the oldies in this business, since I was there when sales tech was just starting in the 90s and CRM was happening, and 10 years after that, it kind of institutionalized and everybody kind of had CRM. I remember when salespeople could say, no, I'm not going to use a computer. You can't make me. And so it goes through all the normal phases of the adventurers start off and then everybody's using it. and 10 years ago, the marketing game started to kick off with the digital marketing, tracking, and all of that. And then it was, the early game, and now it's exploding. And sales and marketing are two parts of the same coin. So in the long run, they're going to come together. In Infusionsoft, it's sales and marketing software with automation. That's the first time I've done that little thing, but for small businesses, because they can't afford.
I do all kinds of weird things.
Yeah, two kinds of solutions, and then they can't afford integration to put it together. But they don't even sometimes differentiate between sales and marketing. So big companies have departments that do different things, and it's all very complicated. But it's all part of the same game. And it just so happens that there's an explosion in sales enablement technologies and things that support around CRM, and in marketing, there's an explosion around everything else. And, in the marketing game, you kind of kill a tactic. Email used to work, now it doesn't work, and outbound used to work, now it doesn't, so there's this continuing tactical movement that keeps moving around. But to be honest, there's way more technology than salespeople can absorb. And there's way more technology than marketers can absorb. So they got to focus on the core ones, the marketing automation, core systems, and the things that accelerate that, and the tracking. So everybody's just kind of sorting out the explosion of the actual situation, the explosion of tools to manage all of that. And everybody's got to, everybody's facing that. Even big companies, medium-sized, small companies, there's only a finite amount of software that companies can consume. And so even though your tool is cool, getting in that
just pure bandwidth.
What are we going to do that we can actually consume is actually the challenge. There's more software these days than there are customers. There's more people that can build technology than can build businesses. So there'll be a sorting out, and this is just the new wave of adventure, and then we'll be back down to a normal amount of technology at some point.
It's funny because with your marketing automation experience, I come from that background too, and I just see like a lot of the components of marketing automation being built out as a technology, right? Like to me, it's funny because you see like, oh, this technology is a sales acceleration tool. And you're like, no, that's just one component of marketing automation, right? Yeah. So isn't that kind of interesting that you kind of see that? You see a lot of what marketing automation does as a whole. You just see a lot of spin-offs and pieces of it lately, and I don't think that'll ever end.
Yeah, like point solutions.
Yeah. I don't know who said it, but, Silicon Valley venture capitalist says the game is either bundling or unbundling, right? So everybody's breaking out the pieces, and they're kind of coming together, and then they break out. And, one thing is clear is that the harder part of a growth business game is not building the technology, it's getting enough customers. And so to grow a business, compared to 20 years ago, the hard part was building the technology. You could build a business quite easily. And now everybody's, there's 1,000 of everything, and there's a fight there. So, but automation and analytics and, continued efficiencies and maximization and integration, it's going to push it in all kinds of directions. Years ago, VPs of sales owned, the power. And now marketing is kind of coming up in the game with the technology and knowing that the top of funnel in B2B is where the leverage is. And, in the digital marketing game, marketing owns a lot of that. So, it's going to come from all directions. It's going to be confusing for a while. And there aren't enough people who understand all this, the marketing problem and the technology problem, to be able to implement all of this stuff. So
how the systems work together.
And so it's a huge opportunity for young marketers that are more digital than their predecessors. There's a scarcity of people who can manage all this stuff.
Yeah, like MarTech, I think, if I was in college, if I was going to give any advice to college students right now, entrepreneurs coming up, like I would say dive into the MarTech revolution, because I could tell you that if you have marketing automation experience right now, like people are paying ridiculous amounts of money to have somebody run that component of their business because it's so crucial and vital, these days.
Yeah. And complicated.
So that'll be interesting. Maybe you should go teach a course at ASU, MarTech, like kind of like a marketing technology course. That'd be kind of interesting. You ever thought about that?
Well, there's actually a new venture starting here in town. I get to see a lot of ventures before they go public that's addressing that challenge.
Nice.
Almost nobody can find enough people to run all this stuff. And between the universities and what the market need is, there's another business opportunity. So you're exactly right.
Now, Greg, quick question. What would be 2 or 3 tips that you would give an early stage founder around going to market?
Well, I dispense a lot of advice with entrepreneurs these days. And so I've met with about 150 CEOs and founders since I left Infusionsoft 8 months ago. And the biggest challenge they have is understanding how the game changes as you try to grow a company. The good news is you could start a company pretty cheaply, get into market, find some customers, get some revenue going. But most entrepreneurs don't know that the game of growing a business up is different than the starting. And you actually have to change your sport a little bit to go survive and get some revenues and employees and see where the market is and those opportunities. That's an important phase of the business. You know, it's kind of an ADD phase. You kind of run around saying, where is it? And you go up market. But ADD doesn't scale. And so you entrepreneurs need to know that first phase of getting up and running, getting employees, getting some revenue, seeing what the market is just the price you pay to find where the bigger opportunity that you can focus on is. And you got to go from ADD to OCD at some point. So that's just a fair warning, you know, and it's really hard to get started and get revenues and play that game, but they kind of want to be all things to all people because you're playing survival mode. And that'll create the curve that makes you stop. So all big companies that get through and grow, all the names we just talked about, and Act and Saleslogics and Marketo and Acton and the rest, weren't all things to all people when they made the turn. They're one thing for one group in one way, and they killed it. And, you know, the signal was heard by the outside world. So there's a turn from ADD to OCD that most entrepreneurs aren't making very easily, and they're going to stall out because the world doesn't need many things for many people. They need the best thing in the world for them.
Thank you so much,
That's
Greg.
the most important thing. So, yeah.
Greg, thank you so much. I love that. From ADD to OCD. Is that kind of like finding product market fit? You know, we in the Valley like to use all these like funny terms.
No, it's the same thing. And these are laws of nature. I mean, you can go hand to hand and sell and find your first customers. And but if it isn't, recognized as the best for somebody, and people say, just get that. And, you know, I'm looking for X, here's the best at X. You got to be the best at X. So it's bigger. It's actually product market fit plus something. Entrepreneurs are the chief marketing officers of their business. They have to create a business that nails that focus. And everything that goes big does that. It's just people don't see the magic trick where they went from running around seeing what it was to the thing. And so you can trace any big company back to we were the one thing that took it and got it going.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. I know it's the middle of the day for you. I would love to meet you in person. I'm going to go and visit Jack soon because we're going to be doing a couple-day documentary on the Arizona or Phoenix, Arizona startup community there. So I think we're going to do like 2 or 3 days or so, just filming entrepreneurs and getting to know them. So we'd love
to connect you. I know them all.
Awesome. Sounds good.
And you connected with Dan Tyre, I'm guessing, too,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
He's a good
and right behind me here is I kind of go back from digital to physical. This is the outline of the book I'm working on that ADD to OCD turn that's not obvious to anybody, but is fundamental to growing something beyond a startup. Fantastic.
Well, if folks want to follow you on social media, what's the best, let's say, Twitter handle or Instagram handle to follow?
Yeah. My blog where I write about some of this stuff and people can contact me is at greghead.com. HEAD.com, and Twitter handle is GregHeadAZ, as in Arizona, as is my Instagram handle, and people can find me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful day, Jack. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, man. So, Greg, we'll have to meet up, and this was great, man. Great advice, and we'll have to meet up. You know, we're not too far away from each other.
Yeah, GregHead.com. Nice that's where I found Greg's information and was like really blown away. So, thank you so much for doing this today.
Awesome. Nice to meet you guys.
Absolutely. Have a great day.